to satsang. As we let that power and that love of chanting the names of the divine, the names of the goddess, the names of the Devi, as we let that percolate through us and change us. You know, all of the fasting and all of that we do during these days, they're to purify the body. Just wonderful. But we're not just our physical bodies. In yogic science and philosophy, I won't go too much into it, we'll come to the questions, but I was just thinking, in yogic philosophy, we speak about the 5 koshas, the different sheaths, the different bodies, and our physical fasting, avoiding this, avoiding that, it's great. Purifies this annamaya kosha, this physical body, the body that's literally made up of food, so you change your food and purifies it. But the goal isn't just to purify the physical body. What about the other bodies? What about our energetic body, the pranamaya kosha, the manomaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha? These bodies of energy, of the mind, of the intellect. And so, we've been talking these days about having a fast of negativity and fasting from reactivity and fasting from all of this stuff that pollutes our mental bodies, our intellectual bodies, that literally is the equivalent of, dumping, a hamburger on top of your very pure physical body. We can be doing all of the purifications we want, and then as the mind goes into reactivity, goes into negativity, goes into those, it brings such an impurity in the actual sheath, the actual body, the kosha. And, easier said than done to fast from reactivity, to fast from negativity. They're powerful commitments, powerful vrats, powerful intentions and pledges. But as anyone who's ever really tried to do that and is really honest with themselves, easier said than done. The mind has a habitual way of moving, and as time goes by, we can catch it sooner. We see it go down that track, and you can grab it sooner. We can bring it back quicker. But simply saying, I'm not going to be negative, for most of us, is the beginning but not the end of actually freeing ourselves of negativity. But I mention it right here because kirtan, chanting the name of the divine, is actually one of the most powerful and simple and easily accessible ways of purifying those koshas. Because as I'm chanting, as I'm singing, that's where my mind is. A lot of us say, oh my God, I've got 100 things on my mind. But the truth is, at every given moment, you only have one thing on your mind. The mind can move super fast, but it is actually only holding one thought at a time. And so if what I'm holding in my mind is the chanting, it's actually purifying it. So along with whatever fasting you may be doing on a physical level, this chanting is really, really powerful to purify all of the all of the other bodies as well. And with that, we start, as always, with a question from our internet-based family, our online family. And then we open it up to any questions that anyone here has. There's a microphone right there. Do not be shy. We spoke today in the Arti about our chakra, our energy center at the navel, the Manipura chakra, and how that's the center in many cases of our inner strength, our self-worth, our self-esteem, and how when it's not fully open, we get butterflies in the stomach, how we have that nervousness in the pit of our stomach that says, no, I can't say that, people will laugh, or no, that's going to be foolish, or no, I'll fail. And that with the blessings of the Mother Goddess, especially Ma Chandraganta today, who's anchored here in this energy center, we actually find the power to be soft and strong, calm and courageous. So if you have a question, if something is keeping you from living in truth, come up and ask it. But we begin with one in advance. I lost my grounding 9 years ago, and I do not have the courage to get back into meditation again. And I am afraid to do so. What advice would you have for me? What path should I follow? I yearn to get back to it after having had a glimpse of what lies beyond. And this is asked by our brother Arun. It's such an interesting phenomenon, such an interesting irony, that the very thing that not only is the answer to all of that ails us in our mind, but actually feels great while you're doing it. It's not like working out at the gym that, is good for you, but doesn't always feel so good while you're doing it. Or, going from eating a junk food diet to eating a simple, bland health food diet. It's good for you, but you're not necessarily enjoying it while you're doing it. But meditation actually is enjoyable while you do it also. At the bare minimum, nothing happens and you're just sitting calmly. Go a little bit further, things start to happen. So it's such an interesting irony that which not only is the best for us in the short term, the long run, but also actually is enjoyable while we're doing it, is something that so many of us have a hard time really embracing in our lives. And as he said, I did it, then I got out of it, and now I just can't get back into it. This is where discipline is required. This is where we speak about abhyasa, practice. The mind functions in habits. That's how it operates. It does what it always does. It's just how the mind works. Whatever it does is what it does, until you stop it and you change it. When you've gotten out of a habit, it takes a bit of discipline to get it back into a habit. The same discipline that's required to make a new habit or to stop a bad habit. Just takes a bit of willpower. And this is where we exercise willpower. Don't rely on the lazy, rationalizing, justifying aspect of the unhealthy mind. It's the same way we say things like, well, I'll get on a spiritual path when I have time for it. Like at the moment I don't have time, and when time is there in my life, then I will start to meditate. Time will never come. It never happens that you say, oh, I've got nothing else to do right now. Total spaciousness. I guess I'll meditate. There's always something to do. You have to make the time. You have to create the habit. Don't wait for the mind to automatically on its own start to meditate again. Use the discipline. It's like if you were eating healthy food and then you went away on vacation and you ate a bunch of junk food. It's hard to get kind of back in the habit of going without dessert again. But you do it because you know I have to do it. That was vacation. Yes, I could have a hot fudge sundae every day, but now we're back. And now I can't have a hot fudge sundae every day. In the same way, just get back in the habit. Use whatever discipline you need to use. My favorite ones are literally things like no breakfast till meditation. No coffee till meditation. Create a system. Something that's going to make you do it even if the mind is giving you 1,000 other reasons not to do it and 1,000 things you have to do instead of meditating. Set an alarm for early. Whatever is manageable for you, earlier than your comfort zone, but not so early that you don't actually do it. And then, even if you sleep through the alarm, whatever time you wake up, meditate. Don't give the excuse, oh, it's too late now, I don't have time, whatever time it is. You're late to getting into the office, so be it. Deal with the consequences. You're late for something else, deal with the consequences. Because with enough of those sorts of punishments, you actually will get back in the habit of meditating. But if the lazy mind knows that it can just wiggle its way out, it'll do it. Tragically, evolution does not favor us to make choices that are in our highest spiritual vision. And so we have to exert a little bit of elbow grease, as they say. But only in the beginning. And only for a while. But then, it's like parents with kids and brushing their teeth, right? You spend the first few years of trying to remind the kid to get in the habit of brushing their teeth. But you don't have to remind a 45-year-old to brush their teeth. At some point between 4 and 45, it becomes a habit. Same way. Exert the pressure in the beginning. Carrot, stick, use whatever you need to use. But then slowly, 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 it will just become like you wouldn't walk out of the house without brushing your teeth or without a shower because you just feel yucky. In the same way, you wouldn't walk out of the house without doing your meditation. But you gotta exert some pressure at the beginning. Yeah, other questions? Any question? Yes.
If I may be given the privilege to ask you 2 questions.
Of course.
The first is around the concept of surrender. Very lofty concept at a core fundamental of awareness. At a practical level, what does that mean? At a daily life level, what does that mean? My second question is around duality, the conflict between the conscious and the subconscious. Conscious is our present, the subconscious is our past. Each in conflict sometimes with each other. How to listen to the one that's giving us the right direction. Thank you.
Great. 2 great questions. Number 1, how do we practice surrender? And number 2, conscious versus subconscious. How to listen to each one based on whichever is going to guide us in the right way. So surrender first. Surrender is both an intention and also a practice. In order to implement it as a practice, you have to begin it as an intention. And the intention, the deep intention around surrender, is the awareness that I don't have an option. The reason that surrender feels so awful to so many of us is we associate it with weakness, losing. Oh, I surrender, you win. The white flag, I give up. And to us that means I'm weak, I'm the loser. And so surrender has this negative connotation to it. But surrender is very strong. Surrender says you didn't have control anyway. All you had was an illusion of control. And the illusion of control was making you miserable and probably making everybody around you miserable. Because when we have this death grip on life, not only is it difficult for us, but we tend to also be the sort of people who make things difficult for those around us because we want to control that as well. Surrender says, I have no control. This is an illusion. The only thing I have control over, one thing, my own actions. The ones in my mind, the thoughts, the ones that come out of my mouth as words, and the ones that happen through my hands or my legs. That is all I have control over. Not other people, not even the outcomes of my words or of my actions. It's core Bhagavad Gita 101. You only have a right to the action, not to the result. You have a right to which seeds you plant. You have no right to what blossoms, what flourishes, what it becomes. So surrender says, nothing's in my hands anyway. The sooner I realize that, the better. Let me go with the flow of life. I mean, the flow of life is what's going to flow anyway. The only question is, do I float in it and go in it and actually reach a beautiful destination? Or do I drown trying to swim upstream? Those are my only options. I cannot change the current. But I get to decide, do I go with it? Or do I drown trying to do something different, to turn that river to the way I want it? To surrender is very strong, it is very wise, and it's the decision that says everything is happening according to the divine plan anyway. It's happening according to the law of karma anyway. It's happening according to the law of nature anyway. Let me recognize the one thing I have control over, my own response. Begins in the thought, and then it becomes the action or it becomes the word. And let go of the rest. And what's beautiful about it, there's actually a beautiful book, if you've never read it, called The Surrender Experiment. And it's a beautiful book written by Michael Singer, who also wrote The Untethered Soul, which is another book I very strongly recommend if you have not read it. It's core Advaita Vedanta for people who have never heard either of those words. Beautiful, brilliant book. Anyway, at a very young age of his life, he decided to just surrender to the divine. And the surrender experiment is basically his memoir of what it's like. And it's really important that surrender is it's not giving up, it's not lazy, it's not complacent. It's not saying you do everything, I'm just going to sit here and eat potato chips. But it's saying there is an intelligence in the universe, a plan, a power, a flow. The more I align with that, the better things are going to go for me. And not aligning with it doesn't change any of that. All it does is it essentially kicks me out of the flow of life and makes me miserable, drowning in that current. So what does it look like on a daily basis? You should read that book, because it's an entire book of literally how he surrenders every moment. But what it looks like in my life is just as the day, you start the day, here's how I'm going to go, here's what we're going to do, here's the plan. You have goals, you have visions. And then things happen, life happens. And you say, oh, okay, I guess we're going here. Oh, okay. Now technology here has gotten a lot more available. But when I first came to India, the electricity went out all the time. You didn't have generators everywhere. You didn't have inverters everywhere. And we didn't even in the very beginning have UPSs. So you'd be working on something on a computer, the electricity would go out, and you literally would just lose everything you had done if you hadn't saved it. And of course you couldn't do anything because now the electricity was out. And in the beginning it was very frustrating until I learned to literally just hit Control S like every 30 seconds. But slowly you take it, you're like, oh, okay, I guess I should be meditating at the moment. Electricity's gone, what else to do? Meditate. Oh, okay, I guess here's where we're going today. Oh, I guess we're not going to do this, I guess we're going to do that. Okay. Because what surrender reminds us is that the ultimate goal of our life is not the successful completion of a specific project or activity or program or task. But the success of our life is how well we are able to align with that flow. So yeah, okay, I guess this is what the universe wants of me. But definitely read the book, it's really beautiful. He had thought he was just going to be living in the middle of the woods as basically a monastic meditator. And the universe had other plans, and he ended up, being the head of this major software company. And it's just like the universe just sends you things, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess this is what the universe wants of me. When I came to India, I had no idea this is where I was going to be. But the pull was so strong that you realize to turn my back on this is to literally refuse the flow of the divine. So that's surrender. It's alignment. It's coming back into flow. It's saying yes to the universe. And then conscious and subconscious. So there's actually a good shortcut. 99.99999% of the time, your conscious mind is exactly the right way to go, not the subconscious. Because the subconscious mind is programmed. As you said, it's the past. It's programmed. And it's programmed in most cases by our family of origin, education of origin, culture of origin, early childhood experiences. And it gives us messages that are pretty much always untrue and in many cases are very detrimental for us. A lot of us carry stories from that subconscious programming around our own lack of worthiness. You're not worthy enough, you don't deserve this, you're not good enough, you're this, you're that. And we carry that because we heard it either quite literally or we just assumed it based on how things were going. And then we find ourselves self-sabotaging, we find ourselves as people pleasers, we find ourselves hiding our light, literally contracting over that chakra that I was talking about today in the Arati, Because we don't believe that we deserve. We don't believe that we are worthy, that we have something to give, that we have a light inside of us. So the subconscious programming almost always is incorrect, if not actually detrimental. The conscious mind is the mind that's able to literally be here now, and that's able to be present in this moment, in the breath, in the truth, in consciousness, in awareness, in mindfulness, in love. Everything that's good in life, you gotta be here for it. And if you're not here, if you're wrapped up in subconscious programming, you miss it. I mean, how many of you, I know in India most people have drivers, but for those of us who have actually driven our own cars, how many of you have gotten home from work and you have no recollection of the car drive? Right? I mean, it happens all the time. Your mind is, you're busy, you're thinking about something. Or these days you're having a phone call or you're listening to music and you're not even present. But the subconscious mind, because you've done it so many times, it gets you home. We're on autopilot for so much of our lives. And it's not that it's not nice to listen to music or be thinking about things, but you don't want to outsource your life to your subconscious. It's great for some things, like getting yourself home. You have the freedom to think about other things or have a conversation or listen to music without worrying about every turn you're going to take. But you don't want to outsource much of it, because then you miss it. You miss the moment. And so listen to the conscious mind. But now the last important piece of that is, when we speak about the conscious mind, a lot of us interpret that as the rational thinking mind because it's what we're able to access most easily. The rational thinking mind, actually in most cases, is much more programmed by our subconscious programming, even though it's come into a seemingly conscious decision-making situation. Actually, being conscious right here, right now, is much more about tapping into intuition, tapping into spirit, tapping into consciousness, tapping into presence, than allowing the voices in your head to basically do battle over a decision that you think you're making. And all it is basically one habituated voice arguing with a different habituated voice. So it's like your mother arguing with your father in your own mind. Or your teacher arguing with your uncle in your own mind. Like different voices that we've internalized over our lives. And we think we're having a conscious decision-making moment. But those voices are not really conscious. They're not voices of here, today, now. They're also voices of the past. So when you speak about conscious, the conscious mind, make sure it's really anchored in present moment consciousness, not just the rational thinking mind. Because even though that seems like it's very conscious, it's actually the unconscious mind kind of pretending to be making a decision. Yeah. Great question. Other questions? Yeah.
Hello? Do you hear me? Yes. So first of all, I wanted to say thanks to you because the speech was really amazing and it touched my heart. I could not stop crying during Aarti. And even now I'm just feeling it, I have also 2 questions, if that is allowed. And my first question is also kind of connected with question of surrender, because my daughter is 17, and I'm now going through Sadhviji. It's exactly Chandra period of...
Wait, I'm so sorry, your daughter is 17
Yes.
and?
Yes, and I'm going through Sadhviji right now. It's exactly also the second period of Chandra, of the moon. And so the last year she dropped the school, and like, you know, I have 2 personalities always kind of, let's say, fighting. Because on one side, this is exactly how you say I'm thinking, like, okay, this is her own path, and she has to go through it. But on the other side, I'm the mother, and it's really hard.
Yeah.
And I try to do everything, like to listen, to not listen, to understand, to not understand, to push, to not push, because I do my inner spiritual practice, and at some point I think, like, you know, I have to surrender because there is a plan. So my question is, like, right now she seems to be restarting, but I don't know if she will drop or not. So my question is, how would you deal in this case? Would you take the, let's say, the side of the mother? Because at the end of the day, you are responsible, as how you say, like...
Yes.
Or at the end of the day, it's your own karma, and she has to follow it. This is first question. And the second question...
Let's start there. Let's start there.
Sorry.
Surrender as a parent. Ugh. Yeah, super hard, and it really depends on the age. There's some ages where the answer is obvious. If instead of being 17, she were 37, we'd say, you gotta let her live her life. You can love her, you can advise her, but she's 37 years old, for God's sakes, let her live her life. And if she were 7 instead of 17, under no circumstances would you let her drop out of school. You'd say, I don't really care that you don't want to go to school. You have to go to school. I'm in charge. You are going to school. Now scoot your little booty out the door. And you know, quite literally kick her out, stick her on the school bus, and you got to go to school. You have no choice in the matter. We're not taking a vote. 17 is a very interesting place because it's kind of right in the middle there. She's old enough to make some of her own decisions, but she's still very young. And from the science of neurology, what we know is that at that age, the brain is not yet formed. Her brain is still forming. And as she has an unformed brain, she also has a brain that is being flooded as she matures into a woman able to give birth. Literally, her brain and her body are being flooded with chemicals. We think about the hormones at that age much more just on a level of like, don't have sex too soon. But hormones do a lot more to our brain than just make us want to have sex. They dictate a lot more about our brains. And when you've got teenagers who suddenly are being flooded with these new chemicals, and they have unformed brains, and there's so much peer pressure, you still have to be a bit more of an involved parent. But it's a very fine line because she's also old enough to turn around and run out the door. And you don't want that to happen. So it's a very delicate balance between, I am your mother, I know best, you're going to do what I tell you to do because you are not yet old enough to make these decisions on your own. And yet, lovingly, gently, respectfully enough that you don't end up in a situation where she literally walks out the door. But I do think that as a parent, the responsibility to ensure that our children finish at least high school is really important. And she may need a break. There may be something going on, no problem. But what you know that she doesn't know is the importance of that for her future. And so really guide her. Guide her. This is still an age where no matter how much we scream and yell and rebel, we need the involvement of our parents. We need it. We need the structure, we need the boundaries, we need the rules. They need to be more flexible than they were when we were 7 or even 12 or 13, but they still need that. So yeah, definitely still be her mom. The time will come to just be her friend, but she still needs a mom, especially if she's going through this, I want to drop out of school, I dropped out, do I start, do I not? She really needs your strong guidance there. Yes. Can we take your second question as our first question tomorrow? Are you here with us tomorrow? Great. We will start tomorrow with your second question. Wonderful. Have a beautiful rest of your evenings. A beautiful morning and day to our family joining us from all over the world. And so much love to all of you.